Ciao, buongiorno, good morning everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here at Earth and Sky. Those of you joining us online, it feels so wonderful to be back in the States, in Michigan, after being away in Italy for a little while, and I'm back just in time for the full crow moon, which is coming up tomorrow on Monday, the 9th of March. And the crow moon, as all of the moons, as you've learned over the last year, has multiple names for this moon. We call it the crow moon because when you hear at this time of year the cawing of the crows, it's letting you know that winter is wrapping up and heading out on its way. And sometimes this moon is called the full worm moon because you will notice as spring is beginning to dawn, the ground is beginning to thaw, the worms are starting to surface, and you can begin seeing those under the light of the full worm moon. There's some other names for this moon as well, like the full sap moon, because the sap is just starting to come out of the trees again because spring is dawning, winter is heralding away, and people are able to start tapping the sap from the trees for that fabulous maple syrup. So many different names for this moon. You can see in our video last year a lot more in depth about some of the meanings of that and what to do. This is actually the first of 3 supermoons this year, meaning the moon is closer to us, perigee, so it appears bigger and fuller in the sky. This is the second closest of the moons that will happen this year. So it's a really great time to go outside. Look at it tonight. Look at it again tomorrow night too. It will be full at about, I think it's just before 2 o'clock, about 1:48 p.m. Eastern time. I think it's like 5:48 in the UK. And you can figure out your time zone from there. But if you're wanting to do some magic to work with this moon, you might want to time in with the exact time that it's full, or you can know that when it is full, you can work with it the day or two before, the day or two after, and really figure out what you're wanting to wrap up from the winter time, or what you're wanting to bring in as we welcome in the dawn of spring that's starting to come. Winter, we've talked about before, is the time to really plan, to go within, to think and figure out what it is you're wanting to create within your life. Hopefully you've been spending some of time doing that. Maybe you've been cocooning in this cold weather and really laying down some of those plans, figuring out your map of what you want this coming year to look like. Because when you plan, when you figure it out, when you lay out some steps of what you're wanting to create in your life, you're able to actually start creating that in your life. And as you're doing that, we come into spring, which is the planting season, and you start planting all of those seeds that you planned, because plans don't do much good unless you get out there and you start planting the seeds so that you can water it and see it come to fruition. We talk a lot here about manifesting your destiny because it's such an important thing. Each of you can live the life of your dreams. I am definitely living proof of that, being able to plan, figure out, lay out what you want, and then be able to achieve it. When you name what it is you want, when you figure out and you envision it, you're able to start bringing it into fruition and allowing that to happen within your life. And one of the important things with that is really being in the present moment. It's something, another thing we've talked about off and on, is being in the present moment, really taking in where you are, whatever it is that you're doing. And I definitely was putting that into place when I was in Italy, and it got me thinking about some tips, because I think sometimes it's easy to say, be in the present moment, and it might be a little harder to figure out, well, how do I stay in the present moment? You know, maybe our attention span can be really quick sometimes, where we think, okay, I'm in the present moment. Oh, look, what's that going on over there? Wait, I'm in the present moment. I really need to do the thing. So how do you do it? How do you just focus on being in the present moment? One of the things you can do, we've talked before about, is just focusing on your breath, really clearing out your thoughts, coming into the present moment. But to take it a step further, and something that might work a little bit easier sometimes for people, is to engage each of your senses fully and completely to bring yourself into the present moment. I did this a lot in each of the cities I was traveling to in Italy because I really wanted to take in each of these cities and to be able to remember them and to feel them and to experience it fully, because when you experience the present moment fully, you can also engage it as part of who you are, which means you'll be able to remember it long after. So engaging each of the senses, if you want to start with, let's say hearing, sound would be one of the senses to engage when you're in the present moment. And so you want to really, wherever you are, whatever it is you're doing when you're wanting to come into the present moment, think about noticing what sounds are going on around you. Really engage and pay attention, because everywhere you go, whether it's a different city or a different house or a different country, every area you go to has its own special sense of sounds that are going on. And it's interesting when you cue into that with each of the senses. I know that we had noticed in Florence and in Rome that there were very unique special sounds that would happen as the city would start to prepare for its twilight hours. And we would, in Florence, there was this very happy just kind of chattering that was going on. We noticed as we were inside the tower that we were staying in, you could hear through the windows just the chatter of many, many people out in the streets. And it was this unusual, different type of chatter that I'm not used to really hearing. We've been in many different cities, but this was its very own special type of chatter as people were just milling about, enjoying the time, walking through the streets. When we went to Rome, it was a little bit of a different sound. Again, it would go until maybe 2 o'clock in the morning. Florence, I think it was 2 or 3 in the morning, but Rome, it was about 2 in the morning, and you could just hear people living their lives, talking, laughing. There was a very distinctive sound between each of the cities. And when you listen, when the city is waking up, and it's one of my favorite things is to engage when I travel, watching the city wake up wherever I am, and just seeing the locals kind of coming to, watching the sunrise, watching people wake up, getting ready to start their day. Often people aren't really aware of everything else going on around them at that hour, so it's a really nice thing to engage your senses with that. Do that in your own hometown too. Watch the sunrise and listen to what sounds you're hearing in that early morning hour. Notice how that differs from the sounds that happen in the afternoon and the sounds that happen in the evening. It's very distinctive at each time of the day, and it will help you come into the very present moment. One of the other senses, of course, is smell. And so when you're working to bring yourself fully into the present moment, wherever you are, for whatever purpose it is, really notice what scents you notice in the air. Every location, again, is going to have its own special sense. Even if you're in your house, every room in your house has a very distinct, different smell. You might not notice it until you're really cueing in and paying attention, fully engaging your senses. So when we were in Florence, I noticed as a general, the city had a little bit of a sweet smell to it, almost like an underlying light sweet candy kind of a smell. And we would walk around to different areas, but it had this essence of kind of a sweet smell that was an undertone. In Venice, there was a lot of water, so there was definitely that smell of the water. You could, when we were out in the boats, you could smell a little bit of the fish smell, just ever so slightly. A little bit of that salty smell from the sea air. The more central you were in there, you would notice a little bit of a heaviness within the scent because it has heavier particles with all of the water there. When we went to Rome, the smell was definitely more big city smell, reminded me a little bit of New York, the type of smell that you had, not quite as much as New York, but it was kind of along those lines. And then noticing your own hometown, what smells you have. Notice when you're walking down different streets, how those scents change as you turn a corner and you go to a different area. I think that's part of why I love having fragrances in my home so much, because I like to engage different scents, and different scents will evoke different moods. And notice that as you're engaging your senses and as you're really picking up on on what sense you have in certain areas, that you're creating kind of a memory of certain fragrances there too. The scent has a big influence on memory within the brain. That's why when you smell certain things, like maybe a certain cookie smell, it reminds you of your grandmother's house when she was baking, or various smells will trigger certain memories. That's going to happen a lot more if you're focusing on the present moment and really taking in, noticing what random smells are going on all around you. One of the other senses you can notice is texture. I tend to be a very tactile person. I like to touch probably with so many things I shouldn't touch, but I like to feel and sense everything as I walk around it, and that's another thing you can do in the present moment. If you're just trying to bring yourself into the present moment in your house, you might grab a blanket or something that feels very good to you and just let yourself get absorbed in the feel of whatever that texture is. Allow yourself to hold it in your hands. Notice how it smells. Let yourself be immersed fully in just that one thing. And that's something you can do wherever you are when you're trying to focus on feeling, just being present within the present moment. Of course, sight is another big one of the senses. And when you are really trying to focus on immersing yourself fully in the present moment, notice everything you see around you and take in each of those details. Notice what colors you see. Notice how many variances of the color green you might see if you're outside in the springtime as everything's starting to bloom. Notice the variance of the colors of the trees and the grasses, or if you're in your house, take a look around. It might have been a while since you've actually been fully present in the present moment within your own house even. Take a moment to look around and see what you see. If you kind of make it feel like you're looking around for the very first time within your house. Notice what color palettes you tend to have. Notice what textures you seem to have within your house. Notice those patterns and allow yourself to just fully be immersed in whatever it is that you're seeing around you. Notice what things are changing around you within your environment, what things are constant within your environment. The more you work on being able to fully engage each moment in the moment that you're living and really evoking the senses, all of the senses, being fully present with that, the more you're going to be able to seize all of the opportunities within your life because you're fully present. You have your full capacity. You stand within your full power when you are in the present moment, fully engaging it. Same thing with taste. Taste is another one that you can use of the senses to really work on increasing your ability to be fully present. An exercise that you can do with taste is to find whatever food you want it to be. It can be one of your favorite foods, or it can be something very, very simple if you want it to be simple. But as you're eating, allow yourself to fully notice everything within that bite. Notice what textures you have. Notice the taste that first appears on your tongue as you take your first bite. Notice how that flavor actually changes as you're chewing the food or as it lingers after you swallow. Notice how that taste is different that remains in your mouth after you swallow the food. And take about 30 minutes just to eat one small thing, maybe half of a sandwich, or I even did this exercise one time with a protein bar, and I was amazed at all of the flavors that are in a protein bar, which I never had really paid attention to before I did this exercise using that, where you're being fully present with whatever you're eating. It's amazing the power and the ability to stand fully within yourself and fully within your life that you gain when you learn how to live fully within the present moment. So I hope this gives you some ideas, a little bit more than what we've talked about before with being fully in the present moment, just by focusing on your breathing and bringing yourself into the room. Each of the senses that you have are very, very powerful things. Each of those senses, as you learn to engage them and as you learn to be fully present with them, that's going to give you the ability, if you're trying to increase your intuition, it's a great way to work on increasing your intuition. If you're wanting to learn to be a clairaudient and where you can hear things, really learning how to harness and engage the power and the ability that you have just to simply listen in your normal mundane life is going to help you so you can open up and listen to things that are on the other side. Same thing with being clairvoyant. If you're wanting to see auras or you're wanting to see things, apparitions or clairvoyant visions, things like that, it comes from fully being able to see and take in and notice what's going on in the world around you within every present moment, being fully present. Stand in your own power, live in the present moment, harness the ability that's within yourself, and I hope you really take a moment to enjoy the beautiful full crow moon tonight and tomorrow night as we wrap up winter and start heading into spring. Have a great week, everyone.